Good morning, everyone. Hold on. Hi. Let's see here. Hello, 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 everyone. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see here. Hello, Ohio. Hello, Orlando. All right, Mary Jo, you'll get the first question. Give me 1 second. All right. So let me just quickly share my screen real quick just to start. I have so many tabs open on my computer. Brian actually just set up a cloud on my computer, well, for the whole apartment. So I'm very excited about that because then I can offload a lot of things that are on my computer and hopefully it will stop giving me issues. All right, so just to start us off, welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're tuning in from. And thank you so much for checking us out here. This is part of the Urban Garden Learning Series. And so we're here every Monday to talk plants. And it's switched up every week, and so we offer classes, Q&As like today. Next week will be a plant clinic, and then open forums, which are hangout days. Anytime anybody, if you do have any, I've spoken to a couple folks, but I think there's just a little bit of hesitancy, maybe a little bit of nerves. I'm I'm not a lot of folks think like oh yeah, but you teach all the time, like you don't get nervous. Oh yeah, I get nervous all the time. So don't let that get in the way. But there are a few people that have mentioned that, oh yeah, I would kind of like to talk about this, and just reach out, let me know when you're ready, we'll pick a date. And you can go ahead and share, even if it's just for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You don't have to do the whole the whole time. But if you're interested, please let me know. Because I'd love to open the floor, and other people who have maybe other specialities. Maybe you want to share a little bit more about your collection, things that you do, how you work with your plants. So by all means, like I want that. I want this to be an open forum for that. So please let me know, and we'll get that taken care of. So today's class is a Q&A, and next week will be a plant clinic. And again, this class is not monetized. If for any reason, even I do have a wish list on Amazon as well, but those are not affiliate links. So this class is free. It's free. I'm going to keep it free. Because folks wanted to be able to offer something if they'd like to, here's my Venmo, but there is no need to. You don't have to. I'm happy to do this every Monday. I love starting off my week with all of you. So yeah, it's there because people have asked, but it's not necessary. And if you did want to get in touch with me, the best email is info@urbangardeneco. I do have my email, Jocelyn@urbangardeneco, but I was keeping that for my classes, for my personal classes that I was attending, and just overall, that was the first email I had for my organization, and it's the inbox is crazy. So I'm just trying to have info@urbangarden just for my students. It's just easier, so I don't miss your emails. And so I'm playing catch up in that inbox, but yeah, feel free to reach out to me there. If you prefer Instagram rather than email, you can find me there, urbangarden.eco, and also check out the website. We're uploading a bunch of new resources, downloadable resources. So if you are on the Facebook page, you might have seen I recently made a list for like Halloween, and it's all my favorite books on like plant mythology and like these cool kind of like spiritual books on plants, mythological, folkloric books on plants, things like astrology or you know, that it's some planetary herbology. So a bunch of really interesting kind of books that I have on hand that I figured, you know what, this, if somebody's interested in this side of plants, I put together a list of 30 books. So feel free, it's free, it's on the Facebook, and I'm going to be making the link live on my website for a download. So if you're interested, and I have a lot of these lists that I make, like books on ecological herbalism, books on urban foraging. So I love making lists because we have a very large library here. And so I'm going to be making more, and they're going to be available for free download. And I'll try to remind myself to put the old ones on the Facebook page as well. So in case that's helpful. We also have a huge terminology sheet on the website. It's almost 60 pages. So I'm actually considering kind of turning it into an ebook slash, you know, maybe a print on demand type of deal. Because I had printed one out and it's like a book. So I've for almost 10 years now, I've been putting together a glossary of terms, not only for horticultural terminology, like regular plant care terminology, but also like botanical terms, things like more like of the like in the science of botany, and then ethnobotany, herbalism, different like plant chemicals, their constituents, all that jazz is in this document. And so I've it's all in alphabetical order, and it just keeps growing. I about every 6 months I sit down, and every time I find a new word and I'm like, oh, that's interesting, I make a note of it. And then every 6 or so months I sit down and add all of those terms to it. And now I ran it through Canva, so it's completely revamped and looking gorgeous. So yeah. So there is another update I'm currently working on. So hopefully I can wrap that up by Friday. And so then that's going to be the latest version. So yeah, I think the last update I did was in July. So yeah, but it's free. So you know, it's something that I personally reference, and yeah, so I'm just letting you know there's just resources there, and we're continuing to build those out. So you know, feel free, head on there and download the free stuff. Just letting you know. All right, so let me get out of the share. All right, so great. Awesome. All right, and quick things that I just wanted to show you. So one, I found a new mouse. Monstera leaves. So I had to grab it. I just keep getting frustrated with my trackpad, and I was like, I miss a mouse. And yeah, I found a really cool mouse. And then we picked up more ladybugs over the weekend, so I'm letting them go today. Oops, here we go. So look at all these ladybugs. So there's 500, I think, or this is, oh no, sorry, 1,500. 1,500. And they're in here. Oops, here we go. And so we'll be releasing these later today. And then, yes, the mouse, right? Adorable. I went to Micro Center because Brian was getting all the equipment for our in-house servers to kind of make a cloud for us here, like an independent cloud. And I saw it and I said, oh my gosh, this is what I've been looking for. So, and then lastly is I love Planted by Christie. It's a shop here in New York City, in Queens. They specialize in rare plants, and I try not to watch their stories because they always show something really cool. But I had this wish list plant. So I did get a cutting a few months ago, I think in like May or June. I did get a 1-leaf cutting, but it did not like the shipping. And when it arrived, the leaf looked a little odd, like it was stressed. And after a couple days that I had it, it dropped the leaf. It was just a node. And the node just wasn't, it just kept, I was trying to take care of it. It was not giving me any new growth. So I was like, all right, yes, exactly. I hope the ladybugs don't. So, but yes, I decided, you know, I was gonna put it back on my wish list because it just the node didn't activate for me. So I was like, okay, fine. Tripartitums. I think it's tripartitum or titum. So it's a philodendron. And so I said, all right, I'll keep an eye out, you know. These aren't very common, at least not right now. So I was like, maybe I'll see another private seller selling them, or I'll see them at a swap or something like that. So I said, all right. So out of nowhere, I decided to look, like on Thursday, I decided to look at Planted by Christie's stories on Instagram. And I see that so I bought my 1-leaf cutting of this plant for about $30 with shipping. It came out to like $38. So let's round that up to $40. It was $40, right? To get this 1 leaf and 1 node. So 1 node is what's going to push out more growth. So that's how much that was. So when I saw this plant, I said, what? Because they wanted only $80 for it. And I couldn't believe it. So I had to have it. So I tell Brian, and Brian's like, just, yeah, you have my blessing. Just go get it. So Jamie, yes, I didn't record the last time I released them. I'm going to record it this time. So I can make like a video about it. But so mind you, again, a 1-leaf cutting of this plant with shipping cost me $40. And this whole thing costs me $80. So this is the plant I've been looking for. And there's so many leaves, and they put it up on a moss pole for me. So in the picture, it wasn't up on a moss pole, but they know me. So when I was said, oh my gosh, yeah, can I buy it? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And so then the guy was like, oh, Jocelyn, don't worry, I put it up on a pole for you. So I was so happy. How huge is this? I'm just taken away. I can't believe it. So here it is. Absolutely crazy. This thing is ginormous, and I can't believe it. And Sue, these poles are the ones that actually you can attach more poles, so they're hollow, and then you can actually purchase these. So I get these are the same poles I use here, and they're really cheap on Amazon. You can actually pay like $15.99 and you get 3 or 4. It's like a 3 or a 4 pack. It's more than 2. And then you can literally just put one in, and as the plant grows, instead of having to rip it off and then get a bigger pole, you just add another pole. It's life-changing. So I wanted to show you that. And while I was there and checking out, I picked up another. So I love jewel orchids. I did not have luck with my first Macoides a few years ago. I got like 2 years ago. Did not know how to take care of it properly. Haven't found one since then. I only kept finding Ludizia discolor. So I have a few Ludizia discolor jewel orchids in my cabinet, which are very happy, but I could not find the McCoides, which I really wanted. And they only had 2 left at the register when I went to pick up my philodendron. So I picked up another McCoides. And it's so difficult to see, but these lines shimmer. They look like lightning. Absolutely amazing. And so this is a ground orchid. So it is an orchid. Absolutely amazing. I'm happy that now I've had a lot of practice with jewel orchids, at least with Ludizias. So I kind of got it down. So I'm not worried, about having to, I was like, all right, this is my second attempt with these. So super tiny, but these are great. They actually grow really, really quickly. So hopefully, that is the case. And then I saw, okay, they had a couple things like by the register, and I got another string of pearls, but these are all cuttings of string of pearls that then started putting out growth. I've never seen this before. Look at all the baby pearls.
Wow. Oh.
Isn't that adorable?
Yeah.
You could see, right? Like all of the baby, all these teeny tiny pearls growing on the leaves that they had put in it's so, oh my gosh. And I said, I'm grabbing. Like I can't not grab that. And then I went crazy. And then I saw this. So I already have a horsehead philodendron, but I have the regular green variety, and I've been looking for the Aurea variety. So it's basically the lime green. So like the neon pothos. See, like over here, there's the neon philodendron. So it's just like the lime green version of the regular green plant. I've been keeping an eye out, haven't seen folks selling them around here. And then finally they had them right there. So I love these. These are still the immature leaves. When they get bigger, they get these really, really broad, really beautiful, long leaves. So it's still pretty young. But I was so excited because finally. So then Brian got plants too. And we're like, all right, we're calling it. That was done. Big thing. We stopped by an area, Steinway, that's near us, to pick up some groceries and things. And George says, was it a Black Friday sale? No. It felt like it. And so I said, right by the groceries, there's this shop that we like. And I said, I can't help it. I really want to walk in. Like, let me just walk in. I walk in, and another of those situations where I bought a cutting several years ago of a plant called a fern cactus, which is also known as a shark tooth cactus. Now it's an epiphytic cactus. It's an epiphyllum. So it's just like, it's like what folks also call like orchid cacti. And I had a 1-leaf cutting, and this poor thing, I had it here behind me for, gosh, a couple months. And I don't know why my cat, Jules, kept messing with it. I don't know if it was the shape because it like flopped. He would climb up on my chair and he kept smacking it down. So it fell, I don't even know how many times. I finally was like, all right, I tried to move it. It did not like the spot. It just was not doing well. This poor thing went through the ringer. But this was, gosh, a couple years ago. And it was a 1-leaf cutting that I had gotten for about $25. So when I walk in and I see this monstrosity, I had to look how much they were charging for it. They were only charging $60 for it. And mind you, again, I paid at least $20 for 1 leaf. So I want you to see what I just got. Hold on, my phone just dropped. Here we go. And this is the last thing, and I will.
Done. Oh, wow.
Look at that.
Gorgeous.
So isn't these leaves are absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And that's an epiphyte.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing?
And the mix is actually pretty good. There's a nice amount of perlite. There's a lot of bark, so I'm not too nervous about it. There's also new growth. It's hard to see here, but there's new growth coming in. All the bases look nice and healthy, so there aren't any like rotten bases or anything that's dehydrated. Um, this is ridiculous. So this is absolutely crazy. And this is NYC, I think it's NYC City Succulents on Steinway. So if you're in New York, if you're in Queens, they have more of them.
Jocelyn, what's the substrate that's in?
Yes. So it's very it's like cocoa coir. It looks like there's perlite and a lot of orchid bark in there.
Okay, and that's how you bought it like that.
I bought it like that, yeah.
Okay.
And so what I like his substrates tend to be pretty good. He the owner of the store, he curates very much what he has there. And if you live in the area and you've been looking for one for $60,
wow,
that was amazing. Because again, I bought a cutting that was this big for $20. So yeah, so it was shocking. I could not walk out without it. So
and it's called an orchid fern.
So a fern cactus. It's also known as a shark tooth cactus. I think they also call it like a shark fin. So it has a lot of common names. But if you look up fern cactus, usually it'll pop up right in the search.
Thank you.
Yes, and George, yes, Solanacerius. And so I know that that's a synonym. So I don't recall if it was first epiphyllum and then reclassified to another epiphytic cactus, Solanacerius, or if it was inverted. But yes, you're right. That's another synonym for it. So it's like epiphyllum, and I can't remember the specific epithet. But then yes, the synonym is Solanacerius. So plants, for those of you who aren't aware, so plants, when new data comes out, especially now that we can really deep dive into their genetics, they get reclassified. And so you might know them from an old scientific name and then it's been updated. But yes. So I can't remember if it's now a Solanacerius or if it's now an epiphyllum. But yes, that is one of its synonyms. Yes, propagation hints. Yes. So when I had gotten the cutting, it had no roots. And I got it to root successfully, put in a very well draining mix. Now, when they're small like that, cuttings, while you do want to let them dry out, you don't want to let it completely dry out when it's just the cutting, because those little roots, as they're coming out, they're very sensitive, and so they'll dehydrate really quick. And then you'll find basically that every time you check, the roots basically crumble. So what I was doing is I was really being careful. I would let it somewhat dry out, and then I would give it a good bottom water. But I had it in terracotta, so it allows for more gas exchange. I had it in a really like heavy drainage type of mix, like it was perlite, horticultural charcoal, leca, a little bit of succulent mix with orchid bark, and a little bit of worm castings. And so it was great, really quick. For the larger ones, I know I can let them completely dry out. So once it's established, then it has like a nice root stock in there, and I don't have to worry about that. So it's in there, and I can let that dry out. But I'm so excited. We're going to be installing another hook in our bedroom. And so I'm going to be putting it in there. And they're pretty hardy. especially in terms of like temperature change. So I'm not too worried. The room stays about 68 to 70, so it's going to be perfectly fine. They actually prefer the low 70s. So super excited about this. I might actually see if it's not too difficult, I might separate a piece for my sister-in-law, because I know she's been looking for that plant too. But yeah. Sue, so you sleep in the rainforest? Very much so. Yes, yes. We have quite a couple plants in our bedroom. Our windows are mostly for succulents, but I have over the summer I got a bunch of like monstera cuttings and things like that I put in giant mason jars, and they kind of went crazy. So and then now behind the bed we have like a huge pothos, Jasenia pothos, and the vines are about 10 feet. And so we have them like, so yes, very much so it feels like I need to put the soundtrack right. Well, we have frogs, so we do we do hear and in the middle of the night the ribbits, but yeah. But yeah, I really wanted to show you all these cool finds. It was nuts. This was all on Saturday. Like Saturday was nuts. Very, very excited. I could not believe my luck. So so all right. Now, Mary Jo, let me get to your question. Let's see. My daughter asked for these plant straw brass, which are used for self-watering. However, they are brass. Would brass straws be safe for the watering plants? So let me click on that. Ooh, okay. So this is my first time seeing this. This is pretty neat. Okay. So what I'm seeing is that they are feeding a cotton wick through this hollow kind of straw of a brass straw that then is being input into the soil, and it's a wick system. So this is like a self-watering system. Now, this is pretty neat. I have to say that is a pretty neat system. I mean, brass is pretty good. It's not, it shouldn't start to kind of rust on you like that. It should be relatively safe. Now, that being said, there are certain plants that can be very sensitive to certain types of metals. So I would say to try to see if your specific species that you're working with is, for instance, I know like even like tillandsia, so like bromeliads, though they're very, very sensitive to certain types of metals. So I wouldn't be surprised. It can happen. So I would say to just check, being that they've made a whole business of this with the brass. I'm gonna assume that it's something that maybe is more acceptable to plant across the board, right? I've never used this, but this is pretty cool. I like this wick system idea. This is pretty awesome. Let me share my screen real quick just so that folks see what I am looking at. Sorry about that. Should have done that in the first place. But this, so basically they feed this cotton wick, though this string, through the straw, and then one end goes into this little vessel with water, and the other end goes into your plant's soil. So this is great for plants that like wet feet. So plants that like to be kept evenly moist for long periods of time. I would not recommend this for plants that want to completely dry out. That would lead to root rot, but certain things like ferns, more delicate foliage, things that are very, very thirsty, this looks great.
I think she wanted it more for when she was going out of town for long periods of time, that hopefully that would, help keep them watered while she's gone.
Yeah, I mean, that could be helpful. I would say to just again, depends on the species. If she's gonna go away for a couple weeks, then perhaps I would just say to make sure that the plants are getting a nice amount of light, because if they're getting a constant source of moisture, they do need the basically access to light to use up all that moisture. So a lot of folks, sometimes when they're going on vacation, they'll like shut all their curtains, and then they make their house like really dark, and then they leave these wick systems in their plants, and then they come home to their plants all rotted. But it's because they made their house really dark. So that's happened to a client of mine. So that's why I wanted to bring that up, because I was like, oh yeah, that's true. Folks do that.
That's good info. Yeah, because I do that, and I think she does that too. So I'll have to let her know for sure.
Yeah. So
well, thank you.
Of course, no, you're welcome. Yeah. So I would say if let's say she's saying, oh no, I mean I have to close my curtains, then maybe set up a timed grow light. Get a grow light that will click off. There's some that work for like 3 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours. And so then she doesn't have to worry about that. But yes, if she's going to be giving them a nice constant amount of moisture, she's going to want to make sure that there is no difference in their amount of light. They have great access to light, maybe even a little bit more, because they're going to be having so much more moisture, and also air circulation, so yeah. Just things to consider, because I felt so bad for my client, who she's like, what can I do? Can I save them? She actually only went away for, it wasn't even 2 weeks. It was like 10 days or something like that. And she left them with a regular wick. She had put just basically the string in, and she put them into mason jars because she had saw that online. And she had contacted me because she's like, how do I save all my plants from root rot? Essentially, she said she thought that as long as they had water, they'd be fine. And she had actually those blackout curtains. And so she had closed all of her curtains, and yeah. So I keep that as a cautionary tale with wick systems and vacation. So yes, just to keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Let me see here. Judy, yes, it was supposed to have gone out. Something was going on, and with GetResponse, I use GetResponse to send out my notifications, and it kept telling me like faulty, failure, and it just wasn't sending the email out. And then finally it did. So I hope it went through. I hope it went through. And Adeline, how is your New York? We had snow galore in how are we here in New York, in Saskatchewan? Oh gosh, snow. We haven't gotten snow yet. We're having a weird last couple days. So on Saturday was 75. Brian was out in shorts. And then yesterday was relatively warm as well. We've been having some really warm days, so we haven't gotten snow yet, here in the city at the very least, but we had some really cold days. It was dropping into the 40s. I thought we were heading there, and then all of a sudden it got really hot. So it's very confusing. So I'm not sure. Right now, I have all my windows open. And it's really humid. We've had like rain on and off. I have all my windows open. And so just that alone, I have 66% humidity. And so that's without any of my humidifiers on. So it's nice and warm and humid. So my plants are happy. It's fine for me. Terry, what are your recommendations for low light plants? I'm reading contrary information. For example, the weeping fig plant, the Monstera deliciosa, some succulents, etc. Yes, yes, yes. This this is so a lot of plants that are labeled low light plants aren't necessarily low light plants in the wild, but rather they're very resilient to these tough conditions like lack of light. So commercially, they're marketed as plants that like low light. So a great example are snake plants. So snake plants, while they don't want super hot, intense light, like maybe a southern light with no obstruction might be a little too much. You might notice burns on your plants. But they do like a little bit of light. While they can survive with in a shady corner, they're not going to thrive. And some folks might even say, oh, well, it looks stunted. It hasn't given me any growth. Like, what's happening? Nothing's happening. It looks dead. Was it, I don't recall if it was I think it was like our last session or last two sessions, someone said that like their plant was stunted and that they might as well be plastic, right? So sometimes that can happen. Where it just gets stunted. But then with Dracaena, so with the snake plants, once you actually put them like under a grow light or give them more sun, you might notice now you start getting pups, you start getting a lot of growth. So they're marketed as low light plants. I constantly see things with like little labels, like I think it was this peperomia was with a label that said low light, and it, and so they're marketed that way. Now, again, they'll survive, but they're not going to necessarily thrive. They would much more like ample amounts of light, and in the wild you would see that they do like a little bit more light. So with, let's say, some types of succulents, I mean, it's a huge spectrum. So there are some cacti, for instance, right, that will actually live more on the side of the cliff that casts the shadow. So it's not really intense light. So when people buy them and go, well, it's a cactus, it's in the desert, and then they put it into like a southern window and the poor thing gets burnt. It's just because they really exist on a spectrum. So this is true of cacti, which fall under succulents. And it's the same with succulents. So some are gonna much more prefer some bright indirect light. Something like a string of hearts, a lot of the string of things, so like string of fish hooks, string of pearls, they want bright indirect light, but really strong direct light can cause them to burn, to really dehydrate really quickly. So yeah, and it sucks. Yeah, it's conflicting information, because maybe you'll find on one site and it's like, yeah, this is a low light plant, and then you look at another one and it's like, no, this is a highlight plant. So yeah, I think the best thing to do in those cases is actually look for a source that talks about the ecology of the actual plant. So where does the plant live? Where does it live? What's the type of environment? Is it an epiphytic species? So is it something that climbs the tree, right? So some of these plants that are epiphytic tend to, for the most part, tend to really like bright indirect light, because they're on the trees, but then the tree canopy is really protecting them. So they don't get that full on light. They do get some light, and it can get pretty bright, but they don't get that super direct light. So I would say just try to find the actual ecology of the plant. Where is it on the layers of the ecosystem? So is it something that's ground cover? So usually ground cover, if it's inside the forest, tends to be very shade tolerant because it's covered in the canopy. Is it a plant that tends to grow on the periphery? So is it a plant that tends to be right on the edge of the forest, right, where all of a sudden there's no more trees and it gets a lot more light that way? See, is it in the shrub layer? Is it in the canopy layer? Is it something that would, so yeah, finding the actual ecology of the plant, I feel is the most surefire way to figure out its lighting needs. Because yeah, there is a lot of misinformation on these tags, and in many cases, the tags doesn't even tell you what the plant is. It just says something like tropical foliage, and then it's like a generic kind of little tag that says, you know, bright light, water once a week, or something like that. But it's just like a generic blanket type of tag that gets put on these plants, many times completely incorrect information. So yeah, if you really want to find out about the plant, I would say try to find the ecology of the plant. Now, specific to the ones that you're mentioning, like the weeping fig and the Monstera deliciosa. So for Monstera deliciosa, they thrive in bright indirect light. However, you can put them in brighter light conditions if you offer some type of protection. So for instance, I have my cuttings of my Monstera in my southeast window. So there's my 2 windows, and then there's this little area in the middle. And so I have a little shelf there. So one is on each corner. So they went towards the windows. So they're all the leaves are growing right up to the windows. But in our room, we have a privacy film on our windows, and so we get a lot of light, but it definitely diffuses that light, so it's not super strong. So our monsteras literally grew their leaves right up against the window, a southeast window, and they're fine. They're not burned. They're gorgeous. They keep producing leaves. They both started as 1 leaf cuttings. They're both at three leaves right now, and they're up against the window, pinned up against the window, and they did that themselves. So they while they do like brighter, you know, some brighter light, they don't want the intensity. So something that's going to scorch their leaves, it's going to burn their leaves. So if you have like these really strong southern windows, putting like a sheer curtain to diffuse that light is going to be really helpful. Now with the weeping fig, very similar, where they do like a lot of light. An eastern window would be great. You can keep them in like a western window, but for western windows, most of the time, if you don't have an obstruction, you get a golden hour at night, right? It's like about 5, 6 in the evening. You'll get really strong, intense light. And so if you're able to either have a sheer curtain there kind of ready to go, so you don't have to move the plant. Weeping figs, for one, don't like to be moved. So I wouldn't recommend having to move it every day. But you can keep it like in a western window, as long as you're being cognizant that around 5 or 6 o'clock, it's going to get pretty intense. So you might want to have something that's going to obstruct that. But yeah, again, just try to look for the plant's ecology, because a lot of those tags they're not telling you the truth. They're not. I've seen tags telling people to put ice cubes in their orchids, which is like, no, please don't do that. But then people go, but it's on the tag, it must be fine. And no. They want your plants to fail, because then you'll come back and buy more plants. So yeah. And let me see here. Okay. Okay, Cyrene, what about plants releasing carbon dioxide at night? Good question. Yes. So that is so yes, it's true, but it's also kind of blown up into this like myth. And so basically, yes, plants do indeed release carbon dioxide at night. So they also it's part of they also release excess moisture. So essentially, whatever they don't use during the day that they took up, kind of any supplies they didn't use, at night they release some of it. Now it's in negligible amounts. Now, to make a very big impact, you would have to have anywhere from 200 to 300 plants in one room to maybe really see a difference. Not that it would be incredibly harmful, but to even see a difference. And so these usually relate to a study that was done, but it was in an enclosed room. It was a very controlled type of experiment. So if you have open windows, it's nothing. You're perfectly fine. So unless you're in a sealed room that has no other form of entry, no windows, so a windowless room that is completely airtight, and then you have 200 or 300 plants in there, you might be in trouble. but no, not in regular circumstances. And we have over 300 plants, but they're scattered around the house. But in our room, we have at least 100. But again, we have windows that stay open pretty much the majority of the year. Our windows stay open. Because we'll run the humidifiers, we have really great heat in this apartment. So it gets actually really hot in here. So we tend to leave the windows open to kind of balance that out. And so, yeah, so then you're perfectly fine. So no worries. Yeah, that's kind of like a myth that kind of got kind of spread around about that. George, yes. So George asks, any cool places to check out plants in NYC apart from the New York Botanical Gardens? Yes. There are a few places. So one, I would say definitely check out the other botanical gardens. So Queens Botanical Garden, I've done a lot of volunteering there. They're amazing. If you are here in New York City and in Queens, check that out because they're always doing really fun stuff. And if you can also check out New York Botanical Garden, they also have, I'm a volunteer with NYBG in their cold room. So with their preserved, their herbarium, their pressed plants. So you can do that. For things like getting access to the cold room, you do have to go through a background check because you want to make sure you're not stealing. You're not going to take anything. This is very, valuable, like valuable samples and things like that. So but it's fun. It's so much fun. The Brooklyn Botanical Garden is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Also, if you're in Manhattan, Little Island is amazing. So there's this new park that opened. I think they've only been open for about a year, maybe a little over a year. But basically, it's a floating park. And it's right next to Manhattan. So you can access it, and it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I had the opportunity to connect with their director of horticulture, and he gave me and some colleagues like a private tour around the space. Absolutely amazing. And it's all man-made, absolutely amazing. The amount of species that they have and the knowledge, and they do tours and things like that. So I would definitely recommend checking out Little Island, and it's free to the public. And they have different they have a little food court, like a little bunch of food trucks, and they have even like events like theater and things like that there. So that's a really cool place. Also, if you go out to Staten Island, which it's a little difficult to get there, but if you can, Staten Island actually has some really great places. You could check that out. On Governor's Island too, there is the lavender fields. Amazing. You can check that out. And then if you go out to Long Island too, in Long Island is my favorite. There's my favorite place. So Brian and I, this is our favorite place. And so it's called the Wellwyn Preserve, and it's in Glen Cove in Long Island. And so basically it was the property of I think he was an oil baron in like the late 1800s, and he left the property to his son, who made some really bad investments. And then I think it was then the Great Depression happened. So he actually lost the property, and it was a mansion with grounds, greenhouses, all that. Real nice. And he, my throat dried out. Hold on one second. But yes, so it became property of the county. And the mansion got purchased by the Holocaust Museum, and they made it into a museum. It's beautiful. But then they left the rest of it. So the old cottages and the greenhouses, they went wild. It looks like something out of The Secret Garden. Like, and the greenhouses, like, they no longer have glass, but there's trees like growing out of the garden of the, it looks amazing. It looks like post-apocalyptic. And then it's a beautiful forest with a freshwater streams, so much amazing wildlife. And then when you walk through the forest, you actually hit the beach. And there's marshland that's protected with osprey, if they're like a big kind of eagle-like bird that lives, feeds on fish. The osprey, beautiful. And it's a breeding ground for them, so it's protected. It's a nature preserve. And you can watch the osprey showing their young how to fly, and they're hunting. And it's the most amazing thing. And I just love that there's so many different types of ecosystems. Like, you can literally walk through a forest, end up in a marshland, and then keep walking, you hit the beach. It's my favorite. It's my favorite place. So
Where is this?
Oh, in Long Island. It's
Okay,
called the Wellwyn Preserve in Glen Cove.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So I love it. I love it. I'd love to organize like a trip, like with a bunch of people out there, because it's so amazing. Absolutely amazing. So George asks, speaking of snake plants, should we stop watering for the water as we do for cacti? Do you mean in terms of to kind of lessen the amount of watering? So with cacti, well, it depends on the type of cacti. So there are epiphytic cacti. So for instance, like this big guy that I just got. So with my epiphytic cacti, while they do want to dry out between waterings, I just wait till they fully dry out and then I water them. But for my more terrestrial cacti, those I water like once a month. With these guys, I might water them 2-3 weeks. So it's a little bit more often with epiphytic cacti. So it would depend on the type of cacti. That would definitely make a big difference in amount of watering. But overall, with cacti, you can hold back a lot with the watering. So you probably wouldn't have a cacti that you'd be watering like once a week. So the only thing is, of course, if you have them outside in really like dry heat, and of course, if they're outside, that's a whole different thing, right? There's a lot of sun, there's a lot of air circulation, so they dry out fast. So that's why you see people hosing down their succulents outside, and they're perfectly fine. But if you tried to do that inside, they would all rot. It would just be horribleness. So, so yeah. So I mean, with your snake plants, I think you had mentioned last week that maybe you were overwatering them, or was it that you were underwatering them? It was one. I know you had mentioned snake plants. So yes, if you think you might be overwatering them, just try to look up the species and find, is this something like an epiphytic species? This is a terrestrial species. So then that kind of helps to figure out when you should be watering them. For Jill, I teach 3rd to 5th grade about gardening. Oh, that's awesome. I'm trying to create a lesson on houseplants for a winter and spring class. Any thoughts on what to cover? Oh, that's wonderful. Yes, Jill. Perfect. So I would say the main things is to understand maybe the different types of houseplants. I always recommend the kind of assessing yourself as a houseplant owner. I think that's the first thing for anybody who comes to me and they're like, oh, I really want to get into houseplants. Like, what's my first thing? And I'm like, well, first you got to understand what kind of owner are you? So Are you someone that's going to be home very often and can, maybe you want to devote all this extra time to your plants? Or are you somebody maybe that travels a lot, or do you have a really demanding schedule that keeps you out of the house? So you can't really keep up with your plants. So maybe, well, you might look at your plant today, you might not be able to really look at it for like another week or something like that, right? And so trying to kind of figure out what kind of owner are you? And then that helps with, okay, well then what kind of home do I have? So what kind of light do I have in my home? Is this something where would I be able to set up a light like this? Would it, and especially if it's children, would their parents be okay with setting up a grow light? Or understanding where the light's coming from, right? So they can use their apps on phones. A lot of smartphones have a compass, so it shows them what direction their windows are at. So what kind of light are they getting? Because that also makes a really big difference on what species they can keep alive. So yeah, so finding out, well, what kind of person are you? And let me understand my space. Is my space really cold? Is it really hot? Do I have a place to put the plant, right? That isn't in a really bad place. Like you don't want to put your plant on a heater, right? In the winter, for instance. So things like that. And then once you kind of get that figured out, it's like, all right, let's talk about all the different types of plants that you can get. And things like watering, types of soil, for instance, and things like that. So it's like, so once you kind of understand, well, what can I get that might work for me in all respects, then all right, now you actually get into the actual care of the plant. So what type of water? So not all plants like the same type of water, all that kind of stuff. They don't all like the same type of fertilizer. So yeah, I mean, I think those are basically like the big things to cover. I hope that's helpful. That tends to be my approach. So I hope that helps. Let me see here. Oh, Liz, I have a rabbit's foot fern in a 3-inch pot. The fuzzy roots are coming out of the pot. Do they need to be repotted when this happens? Do they ever need to be repotted? There we go. That is a great question. I love rabbit foot ferns. That is the only true fern that I had managed to keep alive for a very long time until it just died. But I don't know. My mother has a thing with ferns. Her ferns are amazing. They're like bigger, huge, amazing. I don't have a lot of luck. I think I'm more of like an aroid and succulent kind of owner. So she is, I don't know how she does it, but with rabbit's foot ferns, yes. So they're a lot more tolerant. Now they create those little fuzzy roots. Those are rhizomes. You don't have to repot them when they start doing that. So that's very common, and they'll literally grow these weird things out of the pot, and they'll be perfectly fine for a very long time. So don't worry about that. Do they ever need to be repotted? I mean, maybe eventually. I mean, they can get larger, but I would say to wait until you really don't, it kind of basically gets root bound, where you're basically, you lift it up and it's like this one piece and it's all roots. Then I would say that might be time to upgrade. But other than that, a rabbit's foot fern, it can be fine in that pot for several years, actually. So yeah.
It's kind of a little pot.
Oh, here we go. Hold on. Let me spotlight you real quick.
Not sure how to put it in the picture.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Oh, and then it disappears.
Oh,
Why does it disappear? Okay, this is
saw it for a second.
camera. Yeah, part of it comes in. Okay, it's a very little pot. It's about, I don't know, 4 inches across. It just doesn't want to show up.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, sort of. And well, anyway, it's a lovely bird's nest. And it's in great shape. I'm glad its pot broke.
Oh, so it's a bird's nest.
It's a
Yeah.
bird's nest fern.
Okay.
This doesn't want to show up on this
Oh,
camera.
okay. Yeah.
Can't figure that one out. But the pot isn't very big, and the fern itself it's a nice size. And I have 8 little fronds starting in the middle.
Oh no, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the bird nest ferns, also they can get very large.
Hmm.
So that would be the same deal with checking the how root bound it gets, basically.
Okay.
So they are an epiphytic species, so it's going to take a while. So usually they are fine in that pot for a
Okay.
while.
Okay, that's good.
But yeah, I love that center piece, because like all the new growth comes from there. And actually in the wild, that's where they actually collect a lot of their nutrients. So like dead leaves fall in
Oh,
there.
right.
And it actually breaks down, and they can actually use that as nutrition, which is really neat. But
So
they're really cool species.
if you fertilize it, do you fertilize it in that cup, or do you fertilize the soil?
I would caution against necessarily fertilizing it with, I mean, they're not technically a bromeliad, but if you were going to use a fertilizer, I would probably say to try a bromeliad fertilizer.
Okay.
And so with those fertilizers, you can spray them directly onto the leaves. And so it's not going to burn the plant. It's a different type of nitrogen, essentially, that can be taken up. So since they do have that type of functionality, they come as a spray. I would say that would probably be pretty good, or you could even spray it into your watering can, and then water that way. But bird nest fern, they're really neat, but they do have that capability, yeah, to take in
Okay.
the nutrition like that.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
Okay,
they're
thank
really
you.
cool. Thank you. Let me see here. Sue, yes, good point. So Sue says older homes aren't airtight either. Yes, exactly. So our home, for instance, they're in the process of actually resealing the outside of the building, but we're just shy of 100 years old. So our building was built in 1930. So yeah, we get a lot of drafts. And we're pretty happy that they resealed the edges of the window, because during the winter, like literally you're standing next to a closed window and your hair is like blowing. So even though we have the heat, so that's fine, but you do get that draft. So I'm excited to see what the winter is gonna feel like now that they resealed all the windows like that. But yeah, in old houses, it's not completely airtight, so you're fine. Liz, what is a good app to use for identifying plants? Yes, good question. So a couple ones. I know Plant Snap is pretty popular. I think iNaturalist is really good for both house plants and plants that you see out and about, like at local parks or anything like that. I like that more so because you have people kind of vetting the answers. So I like more of that community aspect. So there's going to be people saying, oh, it's this, and then there'll be somebody who kind of double checks, and so and says yes, that's totally fine. And that I would definitely recommend iNaturalist. It's great. I've also noticed that on like iPhone, if you take a picture, it can actually say like look up plant, which is really neat. But I think my favorite is iNaturalist. Especially I use it with my students when we go out on hikes, and I love it. I love it. So I am a little bit biased with iNaturalist, but especially because it's not just plants. We can upload pictures of fungi and insects and birds and anything, and it's wonderful. So yeah, Plant Snap. I think Seek is also, I think that might be part of iNaturalist. But Seek and Plant Snap and iNaturalist, I would say are pretty good. Now beware of those apps, because I keep seeing ads about them where it says, oh, take a picture of your plant and we'll tell you what's wrong with it. Right. And it's like you take a picture and your plant has a yellow leaf, and then it tells you it's not getting enough water or something like that immediately, right? And it's not a person, right? It's just an app. So that can just be very dangerous. And then I've seen them doing their like commercials, and they're like, yeah, you take a picture and it's like this poor monstera leaf that is yellow, and they're like, fertilize, and then the person fertilizes, and then they go look, and the leaf turned green again. so,
Magic.
so, yeah, that's not how it works. So I just feel bad because I'm like, no, you're gonna make people think that this is how that works. So no. So I don't like those apps because there can be so many reasons why your plant might have a yellow leaf. It could literally be the leaf is old. It could be that maybe your plant just, again, part of leaf being old, it just leaf ended its life cycle. Maybe you changed light conditions. There was a draft. There was a shift in temperature or humidity. Maybe it's been getting really dark lately and you were watering the same. So you didn't realize, oh my gosh, I accidentally overwatered now because I added too much water. There isn't enough light for it to use all that water. Whoops, there's so many reasons. It could be a pest. But then it's like, take a picture, fertilize. Like, no. So yeah, I warn against those. Synth asks, you had mentioned that your Lowe's had clearance plants, so I thought I'd try our Lowe's. I got a gorgeous, perfectly healthy bird's nest fern. Oh, that's where you got it. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
For less than half price, and the fancy pot it was in was supposed to be sold. It had broken, and so it was marked down. I'm ecstatic. Ah, that's great. That's great. I love clearance plants. Yes. And George, yes, botanical garden hopping. Yes. Yes. That'd be cool. That would be so cool. Like a whole weekend event of just like traveling from garden to garden. That would be awesome. Like a botanical garden crawl. That would be a lot of fun. Also with shops. There are actually a lot of shops that are really just wonderful just to go to, even if you're not going to purchase anything, just to check out because of the amount of plant species that they have. Like Nellie's, which is in Brooklyn, is amazing. They're the sister store of Planted by Christie's. Planted by Christie's amazing too. For the winter, they have a nice variety, but I don't think they're really going to be restocking until the spring like that. But Nellie's is just amazing to go to just for the sheer amount of species. Another great one is Brooklyn Plantology. Great. It's a huge like center of it's like a whole nursery. It's huge. It's huge. That one's great. So you can't find a lot of these. There's another one, I think it's called Rose Gardens or Rose Nursery Garden, something like that, which I think it's in the Bronx. I think it's like towards Westchester or something like that. Also, huge greenhouses and amazing. I have a bunch of succulents that I got from there that are, gosh, I got them like in the spring and they're doing great. But it's just the sheer volume of plants that they had and all the various species. It's like you feel like you're at a botanical garden because it's not like a little shop. It's like this whole huge thing. So there are a lot of shops that are like that give you that feeling. Yes, and the temperature is going to drop next week in the city. Yeah, we're enjoying this like 70-degree weather, and then it's going to drop again. Jamie, I got a begonia maculata. It was not getting enough light, so it got leggy. I cut that, made new shoots out of a cutting, and moved it to more light. Now the cuttings look good, but the original stem is still leggy. Can I cut the one stem this season, or must I wait till the spring, or will it eventually fill up with leaves? Great question. So the stem itself, I don't think the stem itself will produce the other leaf. I think it's gonna be probably new growth, new shoots are gonna come out from the base. I believe so. I don't think that from the stem itself, the new leaves will originate. But in terms of the timing, I mean, if your home is relatively kept at a constant temperature and you know, like the plants don't really notice too much of the difference, then you can do that totally fine. If you have even a cabinet or somewhere where you can kind of control the atmosphere around it, it won't know. But if your home is getting chilly and you don't have like grow lights and you're kind of letting the natural kind of light situation happen, then yeah, I mean, you could wait till the growing season. But if you do happen to have grow lights, or you want to you know, you're able to mimic the growing season within the home even during the winter, you can go ahead and propagate and cut it back, and it won't be the wiser. It won't know. So you can totally do that. Yeah, I don't do big chops on my plants in the winter, but if I have like I snap something or anything, I propagate year round. But yeah, so that's perfectly fine. T Bailey, is it I naturalist with a letter I, or I naturalist? Good question. It's with an I. So I and the naturalist, one word. So the letter I. Let me not point at my eye. Yeah, sorry. The letter I. I naturalist. Yes. And Sue says, I got 3 plants on clearance at Walmart a couple weeks ago. That is great. That is great. Yes. Look at those clearance plants. You will find plants. Don't you know, give up on plants. Even if plants look like they're half dead. Get them. I actually found a it was a ficus. I think it's so it's in the fig family, but it's like a ficus umbelliferae or umbelliferia. It's like an umbrella something. This really pretty ficus, and it was covered in spider mites. It was not happy. And I was like, I'm gonna try to save this thing. So it dropped all its leaves. It looked absolutely terrible. And the whole summer I've been giving it water and waiting, because I did the scratch test. So do the scratch test. So I scratched the stump basically, and it was still green. So that meant it was still alive. So I kept taking care of it. And over the last couple of weeks, we started noticing leaf stubs. And then this last week, leaves started coming out. So I'll actually bring it because it's kitchen. Here. Look at that.
Oh, that's good.
So it was completely a stump. There was nothing. And it's just
Great.
pumping out new leaves.
Yeah, good job.
So don't give up. don't give up. Especially with clearance plants, if you can get them for $1. Yeah, if you can get them for $1, it's even better. Because you can find really amazing plants for clearance. I actually found this little guy too for clearance. Also a little fern. So you can find really cool things, and it came with this nice pot. I don't like the pink, but I think I might actually paint it like white. But it's a cute pot. But they asked for like $2 for this thing. So yeah, you can find cool stuff. There you go. Let me put that down there. Synth, what about the app PlantNet? I'm not I don't know if I've heard of PlantNet. I haven't tried that myself. I haven't. I do want to do a review of plant apps. Now, I had downloaded a bunch of different plant apps. And so I'm gonna start playing around with them so I can kind of see what I like about each of them. I'll do a couple like experiments, use the same plant and across the different apps and see how accurate they are, and play around with them more, because I do want to be able to, because I've only used a handful since I don't really use the apps for identification. So, but I will play around with that more, so I can provide further information in that regard. Picture this. Okay, so Terry uses picture this. Awesome, and that it is, oh, it's okay. All right. Yeah. And George, yes, Nellie's, is it Nellie's greenhouse? Nellie's plant shop. Let me see if it's Nellie's plants. Is it? Yeah, I think this is, it's Nellie's flower shop. Let me see if that's, yes. So it's Nellie's flowers and plants. So I'm gonna put that. There we go. Yes, so Nellie's flowers and plants specifically. And you can even see in the first Google image, it's like it takes this whole corner of the block. Like it's one whole block and it's just like a bunch of outside plants, and then you can go inside. So it's really long. But they have some amazing things. Another great shop, actually, now that comes to mind, is Plant Corner. Plant Corner, I think it's Plant Corner NYC, and they're in Manhattan. It's like upper Manhattan. But they're great because when you actually go in, and when you start walking towards the register, they have a huge cabinet with a bunch of rare plants, and it's all like a rainforest in there. And then there's a wall that is completely covered in plants. And those aren't for sale, but it's magnificent to behold. So it's really beautiful. If you like plant walls like that, though, another one is Greenery Unlimited. I think it's also in Brooklyn. And when you walk in, I mean, it's a huge wall of plants. It's, while the store is bigger, they tend to have a lot, it's like less species variation, but just a lot of each species. So it's like I'll go and sometimes I find some cool things, but I find like they have Raven ZZs, but maybe they have 20 Raven ZZs. It's like they have maybe 25 species in the entire shop, but then they have a lot of each. But then other places, like the Plant Corner, they have much more variety of species, and that's what I like. I would rather that a shop has maybe 2 or 3 of each plant and therefore have maybe 50 different species versus having a few species and then a lot of them. So, but I think with Greenery, they focus much more on like more common species. They have a couple rares, but I think it's more common species. But Plant Corner is also another rare plant shop. They also have a little area that's like a discount shelf. And it's all like plants that aren't looking really good, but plants that can be really expensive, maybe $50-$60, which they knock the price to like 15, $20. So if you want to get some rare species at a really nice discounted price, Plant Corner is really good. And last one, I think off the top of my head, is Da Hing Plants in Chinatown. Also really amazing. If again, lower species selection, but the ones that they do have, they've been carrying more and more rare plants. So you can get them for pretty insane prices, quite honestly. A lot of them it's becoming much more accessible. So I love that. A lot of rare plants are becoming much more accessible. Oh, and I lied. I said that was the last one, but go to the green market. So when in Union Square in Manhattan, in Lower Manhattan, if you are in the area, and I think it's Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, that the Union Square Market is open, and I think they're going to close if they have not already, but they close in the winter. Fantastic Gardens and Petal. So it's PET and then Al, like Albert, but he puts it together, so it's Petal, like petal. So those two shops, amazing. I've found so many plants. A lot of our rare plants too, especially Brian's collection. He mostly has gotten from that from that green market. So and you meet a lot of plant people there that are kind of perusing to see if there's anything. I love it for the species selection again, because they'll have like 2 or 3 of each plant. And they'll have really odd things that you don't usually see. So yeah, so I really like those outside shops. The only thing is that's not year round. It's only available. It's like for a couple months, and then it's gone, and then it comes back. So so you gotta wait if it's closed. But yeah. So if you're in New York City, I would love to do that. I'm really kind of stuck on that idea. I would love to do kind of like a tour of like different shops. Like we'll rent out like a minibus or something and just go to a bunch of different plant shops. That would be so cool. That would be so cool. That would probably be dangerous for our wallets, but I think it would be a fun experience. So, all right, let's see here. I have a few more minutes, so feel free to drop any more questions. Oh, and an update on my Jatropha. So I had shown you guys a couple weeks ago that it finally gave me the 1 leaf. And now the 2nd leaf is appearing. Look at this little thing right down here. So for those of you who are not aware, I ordered this from Ecuador. And when it came, it had these big leaves that looked like this, but they were this big, beautiful big leaves, and they were all melted. They were rotten, black rotten. And this was covered in like a paper. And as soon as I took the paper off, the leaves just fell right off, and they were just smush. It was disgusting. And I was like, oh my God, the plant is like a stump. There's nothing left. So at Aqua Genera, which was the nursery, they said, listen, keep the stump, bring it back, see if you can bring it back, because it would still, the stump is fine. It's a Codex type plant, so there's still growth in there. But here's a credit, go buy another plant. So I was able to get a credit, buy another plant, and keep my stump. And this was June 10th. So it's been slow and steady. Slow and steady, but it's finally starting to give me leaves. So now it has 2 leaves, and there are more at the base here that are just little specks that you can't really see, that are coming in. So slow and steady. And George, which one was in Brooklyn? Yes, so the plant shops I mentioned, Nellie's in Brooklyn, Greenery Unlimited in Brooklyn. I think it's in Greenpoint. What's another one that I mentioned in Brooklyn? Oh, Brooklyn Plantology. Yeah, that one's in Brooklyn. The ones in Manhattan were Da Hing in the lower, like in Chinatown. Lower East Side is the Green Market. Upper Manhattan, Plant Corner, NYC. Yeah, and then here in Queens, definitely NYC City Succulents, Planted by Christie's. Quinn's is pretty good. They're mostly a flower shop, but I found some pretty neat succulents there. Sometimes they'll have succulents and they don't know what they are. I'm like, this is such a cool euphorbia. And he's like, oh, it looked cool, so I picked it up to sell it, but I didn't know what it was. So they get some really cool plants sometimes, because the owner, his father was actually a herpetologist. He studied reptiles. And so he's always been into like plants for like terrariums and things like that. And so he has a really good eye for like odd plants. So sometimes you find some really interesting plants in his shop. It's Quinn's Florist, I think. Quinn's Florist. They're probably the oldest plant shop I've been going there since I was tiny. So yeah, that Quinn's is good. I have to give them a shout out. But yeah, if there aren't any more questions, thank you so much for popping in. I think I'll make a list maybe of my favorite shops and stuff here, so that you'll have access to that. Because if that's something of interest, if folks maybe are even coming by just to visit New York City and want to see what you can get. If you are within the States, you can, just so you know, you can take plants on the plane. So if it's within the States, and that includes Hawaii, you can't bring plants into Hawaii, but you can take plants out. So you know, you can hop on the plane with some plants. So if you come to visit New York City, if you find anything, you know, you can take it with you. And so I'll make a list. I'll make a list of my favorite plant shops and post that up and share that, because yeah. Oh, and my favorite websites. Yes. So I do order plants off websites. Also, if I'm ever looking for references, you know, like plants that like websites that have, you know, pretty good accurate information about them. Also, so I'll make a list of that definitely too. Yeah, my favorite websites, my favorite online shops, and my favorite in-person shops here in New York City. Judy, oh, that's awesome. I'm coming to New York over Christmas. Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. I'm not gonna be here for Christmas. I'll be tuning in from Costa Rica. We're gonna be with my mom, and we're gonna be breaking ground. Brian and I purchased land in Costa Rica, and we're gonna be setting up an ecological center there. So yeah, so we're super excited. So we're going to be going out there for about 3 weeks. So we're going to get family time in, and then like work time in. So we're gonna set up like we have to set up the fencing and start to talk to the contractors so that we can start kind of building that out. But yeah, so I'm excited about that, and I'll be recording and I'll be tuning in. So you'll just see me in Costa Rica. Yes, yeah, Diana, yes, absolutely. I will be holding class Thanksgiving week. Absolutely. So
Okay, great, thank you.
I'll be here. I'll be here.
Great.
So no worries. Yes, Sue, yes, take lots of photos. Absolutely. Taking a lot of photos, a lot of video. And Brian got, I think it's 7 terabytes worth of memory on the cloud now for us. And I told him that was very dangerous because I was like, I can take even more plant videos and plant photos. So that's a bad offering of space up there, because that's gonna be a lot. But yeah. Oh, Synth, yeah, right. It does go by really fast. No, absolutely. And yeah, and I will make that, yeah, my favorites for ordering, all that. And yeah. So I'll be sharing more info on that. And the plan is to have basically the main house, and then we're gonna have like cottages. And so we're setting up a permaculture farm, and essentially helping like to reforest areas and planting local species so that we can kind of grow them up and kind of add you know, put more trees in to areas that have been deforested, and have like some greenhouses there, and then have people that can come and stay. So they can come and stay and hang out, and we can do like educational programming, and then also just folks that just want to hang out. And so that's the plan, is just to make a really nice kind of little oasis, a little paradise. And so that's the plan. That's the plan. But all right, it's 1. I'm gonna let you go, but thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you'll tune in next week. Oh, where in Costa Rica? Yes. So it's in Cartago. And the place is in an area called San Rafael. So it's like kind of like in the middle. So we're we're pretty far from like the beaches, but yeah, but it's a really nice temperate kind of temperature, and it's basically it's a one way in, one way out. And you go to the top of the hill, and it's just a flat hill, and we have that whole property. So it's like 360 views. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And it used to be a dairy farm. And so it's just a really bunch of pasture and stuff. So we want, yes, planning for retirement. Exactly. So we're setting that up, and yeah, and then kind of spend time there, spend time here. And then, yeah, that is our retirement home. That'll be our retirement home.
That's
When
great.
will it be ready?
Oh, we'll see. And so when we go there, that's when we're gonna meet with the contractors. So then we'll have like a better, we're gonna kind of tell them what we want. And I had like ideas of using the the shipping containers, and kind of like using that as a base, and then kind of building the houses around them. So I kind of like that idea. But we'll see, because I think we definitely should do at least 2 floors. You don't want to, there's a lot of earthquakes in Costa Rica, so I don't want to build like a huge thing, but at least 2 floors, I think. And yeah, but we're so high up, so you don't have to worry about like flooding or anything like that. So I'm like, we're gonna kind of see how structurally I want to have it like put up with high winds and things like that, like hurricane force winds. And so yeah, once we sit down with the contractors, we'll get a better idea and an ETA as to how long it'll take. But hopefully it'll be good soon, and we'd be able to start going and start having people over. So yeah. Oh, thank you, Liz. That's very sweet. Thank you. And yeah, we're here. So whenever you can join, you're happy. We're happy to have you. So all right, awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm gonna hop off. I work at an herb school, and we have enrollment, so I need to hop in. But
Okay.
thank you so much.
Bye.
Have a great one, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Enjoy your week. Please
You
stay
too.
safe. Bye.